And I'm Caitlin.
And today we are going to be talking about Exodus, the second installment in the Ravenhood trilogy. If you have not read the book yet and you want to, go visit part 1, where we do a pretty lengthy synopsis, kind of going over everything about the book so that you don't have to read it.
Yeah,
but you should read it.
Yeah, if you do listen to the synopsis and you're like, man, I feel like I would want to read that book, but do I, even though I've heard the synopsis? Yeah, read it anyway. Read them all.
Because we did not do it justice.
Yeah, for sure. It's way better when you read it. So do it.
So anyway, kind of jumping into the book, we always like to start off with our thoughts and feelings about it. So always giving like a quick book rating on, what we thought it deserved and why we thought it deserved it. So I gave it actually a 10 million out of 10.
You did.
If I'm being wholly honest, because I've never had a book evoke so much emotion from me ever. I'm not a crier. I don't typically get emotional in books, but it made me cry, I believe, about 8 to 9 times throughout the entire first and second part, which is awesome. I love that. And I love that Kate Stewart evokes that emotion. I felt like it was the most heinous thing that has ever been done to me, but I did like it.
I was actually psychologically tortured while reading this novel.
I can't actually watch any TikToks about it without crying.
So for me, it's funny that you say you're not really usually a crier. I am a crier. I cry at everything. I cry at fucking like commercials. I cry at movies. I cry during books. Like, I am a crier, and I have never sobbed so many times as I did when reading this one book. As far as like, I've never cried that many times at one piece of media. So for me, it's also a 10 out of 10.
Yeah. When I say like, I legit had to take time off for work for this book, I did. Yeah. I took 2 whole days of mental stability, like mental vacations for this book, because I was upset.
I do also feel like we need to say, like, so maybe you guys aren't as mentally ill as we are, but that plays a large role.
Could just be us. Because I know not everyone likes these books. Like, I've seen the reviews. Not everyone loved them, but I did. And it spoke to me emotionally.
Yeah. So we are unstable anyway. So like, maybe you won't relate. But you know what? If you do relate, then hit us up. It was amazing. It was heartbreaking. It was everything that I wanted it to be. When I finished the first book, it leaves on such a cliffhanger. You just kind of like leave feeling like, what the fuck just happened? And this one just fixed it for you. It just put the Band-Aid on.
But what I love about it too, like, even though like our questions are answered, it opens the door for more questions that need to be answered. Yeah. So like, Tobias does give us like some insight onto like why he started the Ravenhood and why he did this, but we still don't know like the reasons why. And so that's why the third book is so good too, because we get that insight behind it. And so I feel like it's just kind of like the gift that keeps on giving. Like, yes, we got questions answered, but then it gave us more questions to be answered.
So freaking true. These books have amazing reread value.
Oh, good.
And that's a huge part of why I love them.
Yes. Rereadability is important.
Oh, yeah. Because I love to reread books and just re-feel the emotions.
I love to reread books when it's been so long that I've forgotten like all the small details. And I like when I read it again, it's like the first time.
Yes. And sometimes because I feel like I don't have the best memory for these kind of things. Like sometimes
because we're mentally ill.
Yeah, because we're mentally ill. But sometimes I will forget like major plot points in books too. So this one has so many details that I feel like there's a good chance I could forget major parts of it as well.
And that's honestly why we started this podcast, because we are rereading books that we have not read in a long time, and it is bringing out new things for us.
Sometimes it's the first time I've read them, though, which is amazing too.
That's true.
So we're just going to kind of like dissect this book. And I think a good place to start is with the characters. And as we are like discussing things, I might pop in with some like excerpts out of the book. And we're just going to kind of talk about everything like we normally do. And I'm so freaking excited.
Yeah, so we'll start with our main character, Cecilia Horner. So first of all, I love that this book is split up into two parts because obviously the first book gives us like a little prologue from where part two kind of picks up. And so part one, Cecilia, she is heartbroken. She is like kind of struggling through life. She has recently been left by Sean and Dom, only for them to pop back up after a few months and be like, hey,
that pisses me off.
It's fucked up that they did that. First of all, I'll talk about this later, but basically they pop back up and be like, hey, don't forget about us. Like, we're still here. We're going to be going for a while, but like, don't give up on us. We don't know when we'll be back though. So good luck with that. And she's like, what the fuck am I supposed to do with that? And so she does her absolute best is what she does. And I don't blame her. I wouldn't stick around either. Like, I'm sorry, but like, you have not answered any of her questions. You have not like led her to believe you should be trusted. Like, you basically drug my girl through the dirt in this last book. Like, no.
Yeah. And I might be like kind of jumping ahead a little bit just by like bringing this up now, but part of that too is like, so they like claim that they never stopped loving her and they had planned to come back for her and stuff. Okay, fucking tell her that. Like, send her a sneaky ass letter or something, because she cannot read your mind. She does not know. And like, Tobias
does not have control over the postal service.
Exactly. And so like Tobias told them like, oh, you have to go away, blah, blah, blah. Okay, I do not care how you get the message to her, but tell her that's what's going on. If you want her to wait for you, she needs to know that you're coming back for her. You can't just be like, one day, we'll have one day.
Maybe
like,
someday.
No.
Fuck off.
Give her a fucking timeline. Give her a plan, because that's bullshit.
Like, if you can't give her a timeline, they say give that closure. Like, if you could literally just like write a letter explaining what the fuck is happening. And I think that's like kind of what concerns me about the Ravenhood, is that they just have like this blind trust in Tobias. And like, I understand that like it is like very tight knit. They are doing really good things, but it's like, if you really truly loved this person and like you both wanted to be with her, you could have gotten that communication sent to her somehow. Like, I really do believe like Tyler would have been a homie in that situation and would have helped you out, but they were just like, no, what Tobias says is how it goes. And so we'll put our blind faith in him.
And I also think, just knowing more about Tobias, like after reading this whole book and being partway into the third one, I think that if Sean and Dom, like, obviously let the initial emotions pass of Tobias being pissed, but I think if they had been like, no,
we love her,
like we are in it, like we love this girl, like he would have come around, instead of this whole like thing taking place, which obviously that's not what happened. But
that being said, too, though, Tobias is like, I always knew I loved you and I will always love you. And like, it would have killed him to like not be with her and like see her with Sean and Dom. And so like, I feel like that would have led to a whole different thing, because he was like their ringleader. He was the one who was like controlling this whole operation. So if like his emotions were compromised by that, like I think it would have been a whole mess. So I don't know, playing devil's advocate here, but
that's true. But then I also wonder too, like if they had never slept together, like if that would not have like solidified the way that it did, because
they've always had that like attraction to each other.
They were attracted to each other for sure. So maybe like it just would have led to disaster down the road. I don't know.
But that's like, would Dom have died?
If we could just change something to save Dom, that would be fucking great.
I don't think he deserved to die.
No, it was horrible.
But like the whole reason she did that was because it would have been fucking weird if she would have ended up with Tobias and he was just mourning her relationship with him the entire time. Like, I think it would have killed him eventually.
I get that from like a plot standpoint.
Yeah. But like, my God, that killed me.
You didn't have to make them brothers if you were that worried about it.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Like, why don't you just make them all best friends? Like, why'd they have to be brothers? Why'd you have to kill Dom?
Why you gotta make it weird?
But they needed to transition into part 2, I guess.
Yeah. Anyway, I do love Cecilia. I think she's a fun character. I really love her connection to music that stays relevant throughout the entire series. I love her whole like dream thing, where her dreams are extremely vivid and her emotions are so connected to them.
That's what I loved about part 2, Cecilia. So obviously part 2 actually starts off with her kind of explaining like some of the dreams that she's been having while she was still with Colin. And so she could see Dom and she could see Sean and she could see Tobias, but she focused primarily on Dom, and she could not talk to him. No matter how hard she tried, she could not talk to him, and she wanted to apologize and she wanted to like express all these feelings that she had to him that she wasn't able to the first time. And so that's ultimately what kind of led her back to Triple Falls, was that she was having such like vivid dreams of her boys of summer that she knew like no matter if she married Colin or not, it was not going to be the correct choice for her. And so she knew she had some loose ends that she needed to tie before moving forward with her life.
I can't really imagine, like, I know a lot of people probably do have meaningful dreams like that, but I just think it's so cool that she does. Like, my dreams are...
I don't remember my dreams.
I do remember my dreams, but they're usually kind of nonsensical. Like, they don't have anything to do with my real life. So I think it would be interesting to have it actually be... I mean, like occasionally
like that.
Yeah, occasionally like people that I know from my life will be in my dreams, but not in a meaningful way. I've never had that. And so when people describe that, I'm like, that's so fascinating.
That's wild. Yeah.
Yeah. So I liked that aspect a lot.
Yeah. I also thought she was just kind of like a badass, like in the second part. Like,
oh yeah, with her business.
First of all, her business is dumb as fuck. Like, I am so glad that she took some of those morals and values that Dom and Sean had instilled in her and like kind of flipped that around to be something that helped people. And so like taking down big corporations and like helping small employees that like are mistreated. Like, that's so freaking cool.
Yeah. Compost the rich.
Yeah, eat the fucking rich. But I also like, I don't know, I like the growth that we see in Cecilia, and like she finds her worth at the end of it, because she was like wildly in love with Tobias, and like I feel like she was still trying to chase that high that she had as a 19-year-old girl. And so it was really refreshing to see how she grew throughout it, and like she realized like, hey, you know, Tobias isn't into it right now. And so I got to do what's best for me. And so she followed her passions and she moved away and she did what she could. And like, even though Tobias comes and finds her at the end, like, I do think that's awesome that she was willing to step away and make sure she was okay.
She grew so much and she became so strong, and she became an advocate for herself there at the end. Yeah. She was like, I can't take this freaking beating anymore. Like, I have
good
to,
for you.
Yeah. And a lot of people can't like separate themselves from the things that are hurting them. So that would be really hard to do. We stand Cecilia.
We stand Cecilia. You go, girl. I love you in this second book. Next character. So we didn't talk at all about Tobias in the last episode because he was only introduced as the Frenchman. So we get to see a lot of Tobias in book 2. He is like the main male character after Sean and Dom leave. Ezekiel, Tobias King. I like that none of them actually go by like their first given name. Like, it's always their middle names.
I think it's more like an undercover thing kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Ezekiel Tobias King, aka the Frenchman. Part 1, Tobias, I'm not gonna lie, he was like a little bitch for a while. Like, I was not a big fan of him, mostly because like I was still kind of hung up on like Sean and Dom. I was like, wow, he sent them away. That fucking sucks. Like, maybe they'll come back. And then they did it. And I'm like, oh, I guess we're stuck with him.
Yeah.
Like, that's fine.
At first I was like, okay, but where's my boy?
What is this?
Yeah,
I was like, I just felt like they did away with both of them so fast. Like, they're just like, oh, you like Sean and Dom? That's too bad. They're actually not in this book.
Well, to be fair, that's how Cecilia was feeling. Like, oh, you love Sean and Dom. Well,
and once again, it's because we're supposed to feel what Cecilia feels. And so we really do.
Yeah, we got fucking yeeted out of their lives, and it hurt because I really started to love them. But yeah, part 1 Tobias for me, I was immediately into their whole like
I was
chemistry.
into it, but I missed the other two.
Yeah, same here. But like that, from that very first time that they kissed in the woods, I was like, oh, we have unlocked something new. Like, we just unlocked a new level. And it was it for me. I was like, I kind of want her to be with him. But I did want Sean and Dom to be back.
See, I don't know. I was not sold on Tobias. I'm not gonna lie. I didn't like him. And like I did like that they had like a very like fiery like passion for each other. But I just felt like, I don't know, maybe it's because I liked like the sharing aspect that Sean and Dom brought, but like
Yeah, that's true.
I liked that they unlocked two very different sides of her. And I just kind of felt like Tobias and Cecilia's relationship was just so fucking toxic. Like,
oh, it was.
It was so toxic. And like I don't feel like that's like I feel like Sean and Dom's relationship with her was just very pure and like they both were able to like give to sides of her that she needed. But also like I feel like Tobias kind of like made her like a more mature character. I don't know.
And like, you're right. Like it is so toxic. And in real life, like if my best friend was dating Tobias, I would be like, oh,
yeah, even Christy was like, what the fuck?
Yeah, but like in a book, like when it's a fictional man, I'm like, red flags where?
Well, and that's why I was so surprised because I'm usually all about the morally gray man, but like I was still holding strong for Dom and Sean, and then Dom fucking died.
I know.
And I was like, I guess we'll just do it, Tobias.
It was super abrupt, and I agree with you. It was like jarring at first, but I got over it pretty quick.
I do love that he wants to take care of her, though. He is very much a caretaker. And like, even in part 2, like Tobias is fucking feral for Cecilia. And we won't get into that because that's in book 3. But like, Mans is fucking wild. But part 2, Tobias, like I was very upset with him, mostly because everyone just moved on so fast. And it really wasn't that fast. It was 6 years. Like that's more than enough time to move on with somebody. But I don't know. It just broke my heart because they pushed Cecilia away. They told her not to come back, even though she probably could have. Like they could have dealt with the Miami crew and like it would have been that. And like, or at least like once they dealt with the Miami crew, like they could have been like, hey, it's safe to come on back. But he was like pissed at her. Yeah. And I don't know why.
He was trying so hard to push her away, but he was doing it in such a like an awful way. Like he wasn't being honest. And that's literally all she has ever asked of this man is to just be upfront with her. And yeah, and just fucking quit lying to her. She's like, I can fucking handle the truth. And he will never give it to her. He will never tell her the way things are. He is super evasive and he is like just pushing everything off in a cowardly way when he's like, no, get out of here. You disgust me. Like you need to leave. But none of it's true. He's fucking like,
you're lying.
He's masturbating to her literally every single day. Like,
and you're with some other chick. Like you're probably doing the same thing she's doing with Colin, thinking of other dudes while she's fucking him. Like you're doing that to poor Alicia.
Yeah, it is just, it's so toxic. You're right. But like, my thing is
so toxic
is he did have, and again, whenever I explain, I just want to give a little disclaimer. Whenever I explain the reasons that I think someone is doing the wrong things, I am not justifying it. Yeah. I'm just saying, here's what I think contributed to their actions. And for Tobias, he had a fucking terrible childhood.
He did.
At 11 years old, his parents died, leaving him. His
aunt was an alcoholic.
Oh, neglectful, horrible aunt. And okay, she did love them, but she did not treat them well.
Did love them in her own special way.
But she was not a mother. She was not a good guardian. And she just
she's barely 9 years older than Tobias. Like,
oh yeah. And I can't imagine being in her shoes. So like she has reasons for the way that she was, but like there are reasons that I think he handled things so freaking incorrectly.
Because no one taught him how to.
Yeah, like and that's something that we won't really see until the 3rd book, whenever he finally realizes like I need to pull my fucking shit together. But that's what's so hard is like anytime someone makes bad decisions and they're hurting other people, it's like, well, there's probably a reason that
he's got some deep-rooted trauma.
Yeah. So, I'm a big advocate for therapy. I think everyone should go to therapy.
I think you could benefit from baby girl. Get you some therapy.
Baby girl and baby boy, get yourself a therapist that you trust and open up to, and they'll be like, have you thought of it this way? And you're going to be like, no, I haven't.
No, I haven't.
And it'll change your life.
Big
have to, like,
everyone can benefit from therapy.
You can, yes, because you cannot put this shit on your friends. Your friends, they're
not therapists.
They are there for you, but like they can only handle so much, okay? Like, leave your friends alone. Quit making your friends feel like they can't help you.
We both have therapists and we're doing a lot better.
We're doing a lot better.
Let's
we're
move
not
on
to good.
Anyway, moving on to Sean, Alfred Sean Roberts, aka our golden son, who, my God, part 1, Sean, man, you pissed me off. What the hell, man? He fucked up. So they had left Cecilia, and Cecilia had come to terms with it. She was like, okay, I guess they're gone. And then they show back up. And Sean is like, she is like at this Apple festival, and she's like trying to get her shit together after her, season of depression. And Sean just appears and he's like, dance with me. And she's like, no, like, I fucking will not. She's like in shock. And he is like, don't make a scene, like, dance with me. And so she does. And then he's like, they have this whole cute ass moment together. And then he's like, I have to go. And she's like, what the fuck? Like, why did you even come back here? And so she follows him, and there's Dom too. And like, both of them are just like giving her longing stares across the Camaro, and then like peel out and deuce out. Like, what the fuck?
It was like unnecessary.
Like, why did you come back?
It was so, like, it was horrible to do. And my issue with it is like, I think that they knew, like, at that point, Tobias had told them like what the plan was, and that they were getting like shipped off. And so they're like, I need to see her one last time. So I think it was like purely selfish.
It was so selfish, because like they told her nothing, and they probably knew how she would take it. And they're still just like, nah, we got to see her one last time. Yeah. Like, that is so detrimental to like mental health.
Yeah, it really was. She was like, she had moved on. She had literally tried going on a date at this point. And they were like, or maybe she hadn't.
No, she hadn't yet. She had gone through like her little depressive series, and someone was like, girlie, yes. you gotta get out of the house.
So she finally had her like intervention with her friends, at least, though. And then they came back, and she was like, okay, I'm relapsing immediately.
She's like, I'm gonna go drown myself in a bathtub. Anyways, Sean, that was shitty, man.
And then Sean went and he got married.
Fucking married.
It really fucking hurt. And like, we get it. We understand that he like had to move on. Like, time was going on. He didn't
6 years is plenty of time.
Yeah. And the thing is too, like, Cecilia literally didn't even come back when her dad died, which is when they all kind of thought they would see her again, but then she didn't come. So they were probably like, oh, okay.
She's not interested. Back. Yeah.
So yeah, he probably really thought she was like, gone for good. And
lots
also
of miscommunication.
You also mentioned like Dom could tell that like Tobias and Cecilia were like really into each other. So like Sean might have also been able to be like,
For sure. But I think that's what caused such a big rift between him and Tobias, because like, even though I think he understood that, like, I don't think he was ready to forgive him, because he still does love Cecilia.
That paired with the fact that maybe Sean also blames Tobias for Dom's death. Like,
100%.
Partly, because like Tobias is their leader. So when something goes wrong like that, it kind of like,
he's probably like, why did Dom sacrifice himself when it was like your fault? Yeah.
He probably was like fucking like immediately blaming Tobias for the situation. So that was not a good thing for the organization or for the personal relationships going on. And we were also super pissed that his wife was such a bitch to Cecilia.
A fucking bitch, dude.
Cecilia was such a bro. Like, she literally, all she ever did was support your business and come chat with you. And you're like, fuck you. You dated my husband 6 years ago. What?
Like, let me tell you how flabbergasted I was when she was like, yeah, do you remember when you said you were going to send someone to my shop to help me out? And you thought it was Tyler? Yeah, no, it was Sean. I was like, what? I was like, it wasn't Tyler? And she's like, yeah, now we're married with 2 kids. I was like, what?
Yeah, like I would have liked it better I mean, it would have hurt less if it was Tyler, like for me personally.
Yeah, Tyler deserves love. But then I was like, oh, fuck, Delphine. And then we find out that Tyler just stayed with Delphine while she was
until
dying.
she died.
It's like, what the fuck?
Poor Tyler. I hope he finds happiness in the future. Anyways, I hate all the freaking heartbreak that this book evokes without even trying, because this is the kind of shit that like happens in real life. Your ex moves on. They get married to someone that you also were close with. Like that kind of shit happens to people in real life. And so it's like, it feels so freaking real. Mm-hmm. And you're like, why didn't she just write it this way? It would have hurt less. Well, guess what? The real world doesn't care.
She's here to make you feel good. She's here to make you feel real things.
She is here to make you cry, and she does a great job at it.
And she does. And then obviously the last character, our sweet, sweet Dom, our John Dominic King, may he rest in peace. He deserved better. I have never experienced mourning quite like for a character death quite like I have his, because it was such a senseless death. And I think I cried more just because of the emotion that he showed during his death, because he is, historically a very conserved individual, and like he showed his love for Cecilia in like kind of like an acts of service type of way, but he never really verbalized his love. And so when he started talking about like how he wants another movie day with her when it's raining, and like she can make popcorn for him. They can have their lavender scented pillows, and they can, snuggle one more time. And he tells her, we love rainy days, don't we, baby? And I was just like, okay, like what's happening?
Literally fucking kill me. Oh my God.
Like, with that one sentence that we love rainy days, don't we, baby? I was like, oh my God, he's gonna die.
Yeah, because he's literally at this point, he is like slowly inching towards his death. And Cecilia knows what's going on, but she is like, she is so scared. She is terrified. And she is like, she beats herself up for it too. Cause she's like, why didn't I do something? Like, baby girl, it's okay. You were like in danger of being murdered.
Guns pointed at you.
It's okay to be scared in that moment. And
that's not your fault, because he didn't have to do that.
He didn't.
Tobias could have shot what's his face and like could have started, like it may have been dangerous, but they could have gotten out of it.
I know. I think,
but like all Dom was thinking in that moment was making sure that Cecilia and his brother got out safe, because those were the only two people in his life that he's ever loved.
Exactly. He was like, I have to make sure of it. He's like, I can't leave it up to chance, was kind of his thought process. And it's so freaking sad too, because he just, that he loved Cecilia still. He knew that Cecilia and his brother had fallen in love, which that fucking blows, dude.
Yeah,
and
that sucks, man.
I cannot even imagine that situation. So like for him, he was probably like struggling with that.
No options left.
And as he was laying there dying, he was talking in French to Tobias. And he was like, you and I both knew I'd never make it to 30 anyway. Like, it's fine. And making light of it, trying to make light of the situation. He's like, take care of her brother. And like, it was freaking sad. And like, also, whenever Sean shows up, because like some of the guys from Triple Paws get there because there are more Miami men coming. So Sean walks into the room first of all, Sean calls for them. He's like calling for their names, and someone's like, we're in here. He comes in and just sees Dom dead in Cecilia's arms. Can you imagine like walking in and your best friend is just dead in the arms of a girl that you love?
Like that's not even like his friend. Like that's his fucking brother. Like
that is his fucking brother. But it's like, there is so much to take in that moment, and they had to make decisions immediately because it was not safe at this point.
They had to just leave Dom's
It was not over.
There. Like she basically had to be like, rest easy, my sweet prince, and then like got up and dipped.
Escape out the window because there were still fucking guns shooting everywhere.
God, horrible. Oh my God. Like that was just the worst scene I've ever read in my entire life.
So with that absolutely heartbreaking sentiment on our minds, I wanted to read part of the when in part 2, she goes and the first thing she does is visit Dom's grave.
Cry.
So
I sobbed.
Oh my God. So this is on Kindle. It's page 239. I don't really know if that matches up to print. But she is here. She is visiting Dominic's grave. And she's like kind of, just talking out loud to him. So she is even kind of like laughing a little bit. She's like, you terrified me. You were such a motherfucker. Like she's, helping her grief with a little bit of laughter. But then she says, I do my best not to fall apart as I speak. You left before I had the chance to tell you about the future I dreamt up for you. Maybe it had a little of my dreams mixed in with it too. Maybe it was a daydream for us, but it was a good one. It wasn't a plan so much as it was a place filled with music and laughter, books and long kisses and endless rainy days. It was a place where you didn't have to hide your smile anymore. What the fuck, dude? And she goes on to say, I pray now, Dom, often and for you. Sometimes I pray selfishly, but just for the chance to see your face in my dreams. You never let me see you, not fully. A hint of your profile here and there, but it's not enough. But I keep trying. I keep chasing after you. Please, if you can, let me see you. And she just is sobbing and just begging for him to appear in her dream. And it hurts. It hurts a lot.
Anyway.
Anyways, we laugh so we don't cry.
I'm really sobbing. Okay.
Anyways, so that kind of brings us to what we liked about the book, because obviously, if you guys haven't figured it out by now, the main thing that we liked about this book was the emotions that it evoked.
As I sit here crying.
Yeah. And so that was us literally, like, as we're reading, as we're even thinking about it, like the emotions are so tangible. It's like the most visceral experience. You feel like you were literally there in these scenes, and it can like make you laugh. It can make you cry. During the scene where Cecilia was at the restaurant and set the table on fire, I was laughing. But then I was crying
up. I was so sad for her because I knew she was like at her fucking breaking point. Like her book caught on fire and like her table caught on fire, and she was so embarrassed. I was like, oh my God.
Oh my God. So like, okay. Speaking of, let me pull up a little excerpt from this. This is just me like bowing down to Kate Stewart and her genius.
Kate Stewart, I am in love with you.
So after fucking Tobias puts out this fire because she is panicking and froze up, she is talking to Tobias in French because she is like, I don't even know what to say, but she asks him in French, why is life so cruel? And okay, so the waitress is just like oblivious, and she's like, is that French? Like, wow, that's so pretty. And Cecilia's like, yeah, how much do I owe for the damages? But also at the same time, she's like, how much do I owe? Because I don't think I can afford to pay much more. And so she's like speaking to Tobias. So Tobias literally hasn't responded at this point. He's just kind of staring at her with emotion in his eyes. And she can't shut the fuck up because Cecilia cannot stand awkward silence. So she says, maybe I shouldn't have come, but I just wanted to see. And then she just kind of like trails off and like takes a big breath. And then in French, she says, I guess I'll always be the girl crying for the moon. And then she just leaves the restaurant. And he's still standing there with the destroyed book in his hand when she walks out the door. And it's like, how did I go from laughing to crying in the span of 30 seconds? It was like, I don't know if you've ever heard this phrase before, but it's like, if you want to make someone cry, first you have to make them laugh. Mm-hmm. And like, that is, Kate Stewart fucking mastered that in this scene. And if you guys don't read the book for any other reason, let it be for this scene. It's perfect.
And like, see, the scene that fucking got me was when she was like kind of having like a little bit of a mental breakdown. And so she goes and buys like a bunch of weed from like some shady drug
Yes.
dealer. And then she takes her car and she's going like 150 on like the back roads that like get her to everything because she wants to feel like as close to Dom as possible. And it's so sad. But it's also
she gets
so
arrested.
It's so funny because then she gets arrested and like her lawyer has to like come bail her out of jail. And she was just like, you wouldn't understand. Like, I just wanted it to be like the way that it was. But it's like, I don't know.
And Ryan's
so sad,
like,
but it's so funny.
Hey babes, you're really worrying me.
But I'm like over here crying, but I'm also like sobbing because I'm like, God, she just wanted to feel close to Dom.
Oh, I know, it freaking hurts. And then the last thing that like made me like feel fucking destroyed was her like reuniting with Sean.
Oh my God, I cried.
Oh my God. She goes, and this is like literally on her way out of Triple Falls. Like she's already broken things off with Tobias, which also hurt a lot. So she shows up and she walks in the door and is like, hey, you know where I can find me trouble? And it's like super cute and flirty and friendly. And it's like the way that things started for them. Okay, so she's crying. She's embarrassed. So she won't look at his face. And she says, I just really wanted to see you. And he says, can't do that if you aren't looking at me. He gently takes my chin in his hands and turns me to face him. And my tears spill in rapid succession. In his eyes, I see the remnants of a man who looked at me not so long ago with nothing but adoration, love, lust, and longing. I see it all in those seconds. The love we had, the love we distorted, our friendship, our season together, my golden son. So much to say, and the fear I may never get it out, that he may never want to hear it. And then he says, I still think about you, Cecilia. It's impossible not to. And then she's like, are you happy? And he says, so fucking happy. And so
that's
it's
the part that
like,
gets me every time.
It's the closure that we needed. He apologizes for the fact that he never reached out. But again, he probably thought she wanted nothing to do with him because they hadn't heard from her either when she left. Honestly, just a lot of miscommunication. And then he gives her the Camaro. And that part was super, super like sentimental between them. Like there is nothing more like
that was like Dom's life.
Of Dom. Yes, like the Camaro. That's Dom's like icon. If you could attach a symbol to him. The other thing that I loved was the banter between Cecilia and Tobias when they hated each other. It was amazing. It was perfect.
10 out of 10.
They were hateful. It was beautiful, and it led to very passionate.
It was like they were enemies to lovers all over again.
Yeah, it was so like, oh, the freaking like, so in part one is kind of originally what I was thinking whenever I was like thinking the banter, but in part two, whenever they were like having just these heartfelt, like pouring their heart out to each other, like the night she got super drunk and he took her home, I was like, what's happening? Like, what is this? Because it was just all of a sudden they're just both vomiting words out, you know, like her when she was in the car and him whenever she woke up
She's
from
like
her
sleeping.
like drunk nap. So
I almost don't even want to talk about things we didn't like. Like there were a couple, there were a few.
It doesn't ruin it for me, but like the age gap thing for me, I don't love. There's a significant age gap between Cecilia and Tobias. And the only reason it's significant is because of how young she is whenever they first like have their romantic relationship.
A 19-year-old girl is not at the same, like regardless, like I know she was more mature for her age because she basically had to be like the parent in her and her mom's relationship. And like, she did go through a lot, but like a 19-year-old is not emotionally mature enough for someone who is 32. And like, I'm not bagging on like age gaps or anything like that, but like they were just at two very different points in their life.
My issue is not age gaps in general. It's whenever there's such a clear, whenever someone has like a clear, like advantage over the other as far as like wisdom and maturity. And again, it's nothing against young people. Like, hey, we were like really young people at one point. We're still relatively young people now. It has nothing to do with young people. I'm not like saying like, oh, you're not mature. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that like whenever a 32-year-old man is like, oh, I'm going to pursue a romantic relationship with a 19-year-old woman, that is off-putting a little bit.
Not even that she was 19, but she was in like such a vulnerable state. And the fact that he kind of took advantage of that because he was the one who sent Dom and Sean away, and he knew he was the reason for her being in that vulnerable state, and he still actively pursued her. That's what really made me like not like Tobias in that second book, because I was like, dude, that's shitty, because you like the only reason she pursued you was because of the chain of events you started.
Absolutely it was. He was a real fuckboy, and
like that sucks, man. You took away 3 people's happiness.
I know, in just the snap of his fingers, really. And like that is just, it's part of the plot. Like it just is what it is. But like part of my I guess like overall like general dislike for this kind of thing in general is it kind of seems like that's popular in literature, like popular literature. It is really common for the female lead to be 18 or 19 years old, and then the male love interest to be a grown man, like in their 30s, to be even
and like the
500 years old
in such a vulnerable, dangerous position. Like it's not like they met on the street. It's like that 18 or 19-year-old is always in like a position where they need the help of this older person, and I feel like that is taking advantage of this younger person.
It is, and I mean it's in a lot of books that I love. I'm not like I'm not.
It's in ACOTAR. It's in
ACOTAR.
It's in From Blood and Ash.
500. Yes,
like Tamlin took advantage of Feyre.
He did. So did Rhys. It's hard to separate because like obviously there are emotions there that are going to affect how you're behaving, and like they can be really strong emotions and they can like make you passionate in real life and stuff, and like that's what the author is drawing from. But like you could have written the character to be older. It just
doesn't sit right with me.
Yeah, like I know 19-year-olds, like they don't need to be dating
I have
younger
man. Siblings, and like one of my younger siblings was like, yes, I am in like not a mentally good place, and I met this 34-year-old man,
and he said he's gonna take care of me.
He said he's gonna do all these things for me. No, ma'am.
Yeah, I don't like that. And like maybe it's not nefarious. Maybe like there really is.
Maybe they
like
really
a
do
romance
love each
there.
other.
But like if that's the case, then hey, maybe slow things down until the person's in a better emotional state,
mental place, and see if they
that's
still
kind
love
of
you.
Our soapbox on that. Well, I guess one more thing is like that that exists in like books, and it's really a popular thing to like make your character significant. Traditionally, the female character is significantly younger than the male.
Sure.
Which is just, I think we need to kind of get away from that in media in general, just because that affects young women's perception of what real life should be. It's like
there's nothing wrong with being involved with somebody your age.
Yeah, I mean, hey, get to know them. Maybe you'll grow together and stay together forever. Maybe not, but you don't need to be linking yourself to someone who is in like a literal different phase of life than you. Like that can make for a huge power dynamic issue.
That's going to be like a whole ass complex.
Yeah. So take care of yourselves, take care of your friends if they're in that situation, and just be like,
authors, be better.
Like, yeah. Be better. Like you absolutely can just make the person, like you can make them closer in age.
There's nothing wrong. Like I know you're okay. And like we talked about this the other day, authors in this day and age are all about catering to what's popular. And like, I get it. I understand like social media, TikTok, especially with like book talk and everything, has created a platform where like people tell you exactly what they're looking for in a book. I get it. But like, do your own thing. I'm sorry. Make them 22, make them 25, make them 26. Like there's no need for a 19-year-old girl to be involved with someone over the age of 30.
Yeah, like she has not even gone to college yet. Or like, okay, so and I'm not saying that everyone has to go to college, but she is literally fresh from high school. Like she's
dealing with a traumatic childhood and a traumatic relationship. Like, yeah, just do better.
Anyway, I digress.
Yeah, it's fine. Like that's just our own take on it. I have nothing against age gap romances. Like some of them are really good.
I will read them.
I've read some myself. I'm just saying, like whenever people are in an emotional, vulnerable state like that, it just sits wrong with me.
100%. And obviously, we rated this book extremely highly. It has nothing to do with like how much we love.
That's just our own personal opinion.
Is there anything else that you disliked?
I just disliked the mistreatment of Cecilia when she came back. I felt like everyone was very harsh on her when in fact they were the ones who abandoned her. Like their exact words from the Ravenhood were, forget that you were here and forget that you ever saw us. Like if anyone asks about us, lie. And so like she did exactly that for 6 years. She did exactly what they asked. And when she came back, they're like, what the fuck are you doing here?
And it's bullshit because she had plenty of reasons to be there. Like she was tying up all her loose ends too. Yeah, like she was selling the company. She was selling her dad's house. Like
it's like that was shitty.
It was. And also like speaking of the mistreatment of her, like, like it literally started from day one. Like no one would be honest with her when that's all that she asked for. Nobody, even when they built that foundation of trust with her, they wouldn't be honest with her. And everybody just kept making decisions for her. And she's literally like,
I'm a grown ass person.
Let me make these decisions for myself. And what pissed me off too is like how her mom like never told her the truth, even though Cecilia literally took care of her mom because her mom was like
incapable of doing it herself.
A child. Yeah. So like, you can tell her the truth if she's literally like keeping you together while your drunk ass is like going through rehab and shit. Like you can tell her the truth whenever you're like in a better place and she's a grown adult, but she didn't. She waited for Cecilia to just find out and confront her. It's bullshit. And nobody ever like until even we haven't gotten to the third Beck yet, but I feel like nobody took Cecilia seriously and treated her with respect as an equal until book 3. Yeah. And so that pisses me off for her.
Well, and it also pisses me off that like her mom specifically, like she lied to her and like kept her from having a relationship with her father, even though that's what Roman wanted to begin with. Like her mom still could have been upfront with her when he was like literally dying. Like, I feel like if she had just been even a little bit transparent about like what had happened, like Cecilia would have been able to come to terms with it and have that like moment of peace with her father. Yeah. And like, that is something that literally haunted her for 6 years. And even after he died, like she still wasn't ready to forgive him until her mom like told her that story. And like, I know Roman didn't do things well and like, he probably could have gone about it the best, but I really do think he tried his best as a father and like he wanted to make sure she was like as safe as possible. And so I don't know, that whole part made me really sad for Cecilia and the relationship that she like missed out with her dad.
Yeah. And again, it just sucks because again, the decision was made for her. Like,
poor Cecilia. Cecilia is a victim.
Cecilia is a victim of many things. And if you don't
no one will change my mind.
Cecilia is a victim. Change my mind.
I mean, that's Exodus in a nutshell. It is a roller coaster from start to finish. Having 2 different parts in it, like, really takes it out of you. It is a lot mentally. But the ending of it really does set up the third book perfectly. And honestly, the third book gives you so much closure as a reader. And we're super, super excited to talk about it in our next full-length episode. It's called The Finish Line. So go ahead and start reading it, get a head start on it. We'll be covering that next.
Yeah, and join us next week for our mini-sode. We are going to start another new segment. It is called Good Reads, Bad Reviews. So join us for our mini-sode. It's going to be a segment where we read, we're not reading them ahead of time. We are going to blind react
to
1-star reviews from popular books. And
we're going to do the ACOTAR series first.
Yes. We're starting with ACOTAR. So join us for that mini-sode. It should be really entertaining. I'm excited.
Yes.
So we'll see you there. And as always,
let's get lit.